This is our 27th episode, and we have a very, very special and interesting guest today. And before that, I would like to tell the topic that we have chosen is thriving at work, unleashing productivity and happiness, and how the future of work is going to be based on focused on inclusiveness, culture, and workplace well-being. And today I have a very, very interesting guest speaker, Maya, and she's a somatic leadership and a career transition coach, and she's got many accolades and awards. And she's also the LinkedIn top voice, very, very active on LinkedIn, shares some amazing insights and value for people who follow her, and you should be following her on that to gain a lot of insights. And she's a distinguished award-winning global keynote speaker, coach, and a corporate trainer. And with 15 years of tech experience working in with industry giants like TCS, HCL, she has got a deep understanding of workplace challenges and how to deal with it. She does a lot of leadership program, and there is many more things about her I'm going to be sharing along the way. She's also a celebrated top 5 women entrepreneurs for a commitment to mental health advocacy, and many more things. Thank you so much, Maya, for being here, taking time out, and to share to want to share all these nuggets of wisdom that you've collected.
Thank you so much, Captain, for having me on your Wednesday Wisdom series, and pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
So much. So to get started, just a while back, we were talking about in the back room, like about agile, uh,
Hmm.
and about how we need to evolve ourselves. We need to continuously iterate and work on ourselves. Right? It's a very topic that very close to me as well. So I thought let's begin with that. And could you share a few thoughts on that?
Yeah, very interesting that you picked this up as the first thread, Captain. So my experience and my journey of being in the tech industry, has also been in the product development space. So wherein, largely I used to work with teams where helping them understand what being in an agile mindset actually means, and therefore transitioning from a waterfall into an agile model. Now, having worked largely with IT and technology teams, I also understood that it is not just applicable and relevant only to our technology folks, but it is actually relevant and applicable to every other team and every other department. So largely my part, or one of the roles that I played in my previous organization that I was associated with before I decided to leave before I decided to hang my corporate boots. For many years, I was working as an agile coach, a CSPO, which is a certified Scrum product owner, and by virtue of which I was largely working on the enterprise wide agile transformation, which meant working with people and helping them understand the need for an agile mindset, and therefore transition from a waterfall into an agile model. And that was actually the beginning of my love for coaching, because this is where I really could see the resistance coming in from folks, wherein change is scary and nobody wants to change. It almost felt like, why me and why now? And so all of these questions, when I really worked with teams across the organization, starting from marketing to HR to operations to IT to finance, the easiest transition was with the IT teams, because they do understand agile as a model. But it was very difficult to sort of help the other teams transition, and that's where I think large part of my experience as a trainer, as a coach, as a leader kind of gave me so much of my own experience. And I think that again was the transition for me to therefore understand that this is perhaps my calling. And thereafter, I decided to finally hang the corporate boots and independently start off on my own. So yeah.
Nice, superb. Because the agile word and the iterativeness is so much in sync with nature as such,
Absolutely.
and I love to see these lessons from nature
Mm.
to implement in one's lives. Is the nature itself? If the tree was growing and it had something on its way, and it would bend around that obstructions and still continue to grow ahead,
Absolutely.
right? It
Yes.
would not say that, okay, this is the rule, I need to go
Yes.
straight.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the same wisdom, if we apply to our lives, it is also, I
Hmm.
found that it is also makes us stress free a little bit to an
Hmm.
extent,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so that was something that really connected the moment you said agile and iterative, that people could do
Yeah.
that.
See, one
So
of the principles of Agile that I still hold very closely to my heart, and I think, both you and I will probably appreciate this also because we are entrepreneurs at heart, is the fact that, fail fast as a philosophy of Agile. It's
yeah,
it's it's not that if we sit and think that we need to get everything right and be 100% perfect, chances are you are never going to get started. So
yeah,
it's okay to not know everything in the beginning. Go out there, try it out, fail fast, come back, iterate, and again go with your version 2.0. And
yeah,
that's what we call the agile mindset. It's an iterative loop. And it's again, if you look at it, that's how I think life is all about,
yeah,
right? So we go out there, we do something, we learn the experience, and it's not just in the field of work but life in general. And
yeah.
that's where I think I kind of associate myself with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. How would you advise people, especially individuals, at company, at entrepreneur level? It's of course more appreciative. We can
Hmm.
appreciate these things, but at an individual level, maybe if somebody wants to choose a career path,
Hmm.
right? How would you advise this model to them,
Hmm.
or
So
how
when
would
you say choose a career path, do you mean a career
maybe
transition?
a
uh,
career transition, maybe or an entry level also, or a career transition also?
Okay. So people who are looking at career transitions, and this is again, from coming in from my own personal experience of having been a career switcher myself, of, making an unconventional career move. And perhaps we didn't mention this in the introduction, but just to kind of add this, that I am a certified movement therapy practitioner, um, from being a telecommunications engineer and a management grad working in a big four management consulting firm to getting myself trained as a certified movement therapy practitioner. That itself was a very unconventional career move. And I remember when I kind of appeared for my interview at the institute that I was appearing for, the Tata Institute of Social Sciences in Mumbai, exactly 10 years back in 2014. I was the only candidate with my kind of background, because they were looking for students with or people with sociology, psychology sort of a background. And therefore, having made the switch myself of transitioning into a very unconventional career, I kind of realized what is it that worked for me and has been working for me is the understanding of the applicability of cross functional skills. And if we really can understand and double down on it, I think that's one of the greatest learnings that one could actually leverage and bring onto the table. Because I when I went for the training, I realized that what largely most of the folks were thinking, I was thinking very differently, because I come in from a very different pedagogy, from a very different world of being in a hardcore engineering and technology background. And therefore I think that worked out for my benefit. And which is why I really ask people, when they are willing to transition, to first gain clarity on what are your career anchors. When you know what are your career anchors, you really understand the difference between a job and a calling. And and there's a lot of internal introspection one actually needs to do. And if we can get clear with all these answers, and very frankly these answers don't come so often, and it
Mm.
does not come overnight. For me, it's been a journey of now almost close to 10 years of really sitting with the questions, trying to talk to a lot of people, reaching out to folks who are ahead of me, whose journey I really am inspired to look at, and really understand that what does it take for somebody to be at that level. What am I doing today and what can I do differently? I think largely if we really do a lot of self introspection and iteration, again going back to the agile mindset, and I think that is when you can really be able to transition from whether you are in a corporate wanting to move into an entrepreneurial space, or you want to transition into a absolutely unconventional uh, career domain, etc. Really being agile in your mindset, and also having the clarity of vision, that what is it that you would want to birth at the end of this process. That's where I would like to say.
Superb. I mean, you mentioned about being almost like a disruptor, and there's a saying that disruptors bring the best change because they come with no baggage of
Absolutely.
how
Oh,
the
yes.
industry
Yes, with
works.
a beginner's mindset, because you are a
Yes.
newbie in the new industry or in the new domain. You have no understanding. So you're literally starting from ground zero with the learner's mindset of, okay, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the best ways to really learn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if the established conventional, pathways to go straight, and the disruptor is like, what about right? They'll be like, right, I
Exactly.
don't even know right exists, and
Yes.
a disruptor can create a new path and
Yes. Yes.
challenge notions and
Totally.
established
Totally.
protocols. Superb.
Totally.
And I think this thing, the agile thing, is also very apt. I think when people are little confused today, there's a lot of things about purpose, choosing
Mm-hmm.
purpose, and people are not happy in their job sometimes, right? And I think, and they're stuck like, I need to hit gold before I make the switch,
Mm.
right? I need to
Yes.
be sure. Give me
Yes.
100% guarantee that the choice is correct. It's a
Absolutely.
winnable choice,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
then I'm going to do that career
Yes. So
transition. Or,
perfectionism is what, perfectionism and the fear of failure actually
mm,
kills more dreams than failure itself. That's something classically, we have read through research. The fear of failure stops more dreams than actually the failure, because what if we kind of sit brooding and kind of getting ourselves in the analysis paralysis syndrome of
mm,
what if this were to come true, what if,
yeah,
but what if, I mean, what if in the sense, what if I fail? That's what largely people kind of go back to, kind of questioning themselves and really self doubt. That's when self doubt kicks in. But this is what, again, going back to my personal journey of when I was going through my own transition phase of coming into a place of, okay, I've been into the corporate very successfully so for several odd years, and now I feel that I want to move on to a very different life and lifestyle.
mm,
Now, how can I make this possible? How can I make this happen? And within a contained time frame, within certain, shall we say, boundary conditions, given all of that, again, coming from a technology background, I kind of do all these flow chart. And I, again, going back to the agile, I literally had a kanban board that I had put up in a physical kanban board in my house at that point in time, and putting all the stick on notes to really say, okay, these are the building blocks of what needs to change and what needs to happen. What if this, what if this, what if this? So really working with it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle, and it's very interesting and fun to really work with it. But somebody actually has to do it to sort of see it. And I think that's when the point I really started asking myself the question of, what if I fly, rather than asking what if I fail.
mm,
It's a very interesting switch over if you can ask yourself, but what if I fly? If you say, what if I fail, you are paralyzing yourself, and it's a disempowering thought.
mm,
Rather than a disempowering thought, which it is a disempowering thought, would you not want to switch over and put yourself into a much more empowering position of asking yourself an empowering question, which is, what if I were to fly?
mm,
And this is, again, the word fly is very interesting and something that I use quite often in my coaching and in my content. If you have if you have seen it also, is that the word fly, FLY, and this is what I say: if you want to fly, FLY, first love yourself. So the
mm.
word fly itself is an acronym for me. And
Yes.
that's how I kind of retrained my brain, and literally, not sitting into that analysis paralysis of, okay, what if I fail, but what if I fly? So it's a 50-50 chance. Like, you would never know. If you do not ask, the answer is always no. So
Yeah.
you have to go out there and ask. Like, I literally took a chance on myself by appearing for that movement therapy course, and really putting in my application at a time when I literally had 0% chance of getting through. But I said, what's the max that will happen? They will probably not select me. That's about it. But
Mm,
if I do not apply, I will anyways not get selected. So I have already lost it. What's
yeah.
the worst that will happen? They may not select me. But what's the best that can happen? I may get selected. So
Mm,
this is exactly what I have done with my own life, and this is how I coach, my clients also on when they are stuck in that analysis paralysis, and like literally waiting on the fence of what if, and if now or never, or how to go about it. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's beautifully put that I mean, you captured it really well about the fly, first love yourself. I think that's a great takeaway for me. And also about what's the worst that can happen. Really,
Yeah.
most of my coaching, many times, is simply asking them that question.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right? It's about breaking down that fear. What is the worst that can happen, really? And and then they are like, this is the worst that can happen. Is
Yeah.
it something that you can
Yeah.
deal with?
Yes,
Then
yes,
what's the
yes.
worst? That's about
Yeah.
it, right?
Yeah. It's
And
really preparing your mind. And I'll give you one more model. I'm all about these acronyms and models that I love to work with in my coaching framework. So I also work with the BMW model. BMW is best case scenario when you are literally, sitting at the fence and wanting to figure out whether I should do this versus that, when you're really wanting to toy around with the options that you have, and really weigh in the options of what are the pros and cons. Probably run yourself through a BMW model. BMW is best case scenario. What's the best case scenario, the best case solution that could happen out of this situation? M is the most likely. What could be the most likely outcome of this particular situation? And W is the worst. So if you actually get to sit and articulate and reflect and get it out on a piece of paper, half of your worry is gone, because now you have trained your mind, now you have trained your consciousness to know, okay, you know what, even if I were to fail, even if the worst outcome is going to come true, this is what will happen. Okay, so be it, now I'm prepared.
yeah,
And then you run through the most likely. Okay, most likely. So for example, this is how again I coach my clients on when they're going to go and have a conversation with their boss and ask for for a pay raise or for a promotion. What's the worst thing that could happen? They may just turn you down. What's the most likely? They may give you a x percentage, but you want a x plus y percentage, which is the best case scenario. So let's work with that. So this is how you really kind of train your mind and can really be prepared in the conversation to come in with the preparedness. And as they say, fortune favors the prepared.
yeah, yeah. Prepared and the brave, you could add, I think, what you've been speaking. Right?
Yes, yes,
If you don't
absolutely,
ask, you don't
absolutely.
get. You need to build
Yes,
courage to ask. You need to build courage to put yourself out there to fail
absolutely,
and to fly, right?
absolutely.
And I think it's always favored the people who are ready to take that little risk,
Hmm.
right? Ready to say that what's the worst, in
So
this
no
case.
risk, no gain. I mean, it
Yeah,
there's an adage, right? No
yeah,
risk, no gain. And I think who knows it better than you, right, Captain?
yeah,
Like the greater the risk, the greater the reward, right? But at any given point in time, I always go in and tell this to my clients is that, especially for people who come into me for their career coaching, career transition coaching, is that always go in with a calculated risk in mind,
mm,
right? So have your calculations done in terms of the BMW, and if you can have it ready and literally treat it like a Bible,
mm,
then you are already prepared. There's less chance of kind of getting surprised. But
yeah,
I mean, of course there are going to be unknowns in the journey which we cannot calculate. Those are ad hoc, like nobody knew that the world would go into a COVID kind of a situation. These are things which we cannot forecast or we cannot calculate or be prepared with. But
yeah,
if you at least have the known knowns, then it's some part of the preparation, the prep work you have done.
yeah. Superb. I've been having amazing nuggets and wisdom from Maya. And just to welcome the audience again, thank you so much for taking time out for being here. And I have with me Maya, who's a somatic leadership and career transition coach. And she's been sharing some amazing wisdom, amazing acronyms and go-to mantras that you need to really catch up on. If you have missed it, then don't forget to watch the recording again. So continuing ahead, Maya, is like sticking still to the iterative model and asking on that, how much can be too much iteration?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
How much can be a too much iteration? Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting question now that you ask me. I think, we all need to give ourselves a certain runway, a certain framework in terms of, okay, like for example, I probably quote from my own life. So when I decided to move out from the corporate bandwagon and sort of start up of my own, doing something of my own, I gave myself a particular timeline
Mm,
that I'm going to try, because of course there's a 50% chance of it actually working out for you, and a 50% chance of it not working out for you, right? So kind of again taking the calculated risk, and being prepared in your mind as to, okay, what if this were not to work, what are the backup options? Not that I'm saying that this will happen, but if
mm,
this does not happen, then what other options do I have? And then kind of working with a particular timeline or a framework in mind, saying that, okay, this is how I would probably this is the maximum timeline I want to give myself. And if I still cannot make it within this time frame, that is when I need to kind of look at other options. So one of the things that they say about entrepreneurs, and I think right now everybody's watching Shark Tanks, like, right? So I mean, we are sitting in and both of us, I mean, Captain, we both of us are sitting in the Silicon Valley of India, which is also the startup hub of India.
yes.
So
Yeah.
there's a lot of emotional connect, and a lot of young blood that is really raring to do something new. But I think another learning from watching Shark Tanks and some of these series is that if you are a smart, intelligent entrepreneur, you should also know when to quit. Don't get so emotionally attached with the idea or the business that even if it is not a successful or a profitable business, you are still running with it. So there has to be that threshold point, and that is something which the entrepreneur, the founder, has to decide for himself or herself, what works for them, to know, okay, when is it that enough is enough. And whether it is the 99th iteration or the ninth iteration, that's something that neither you and I can go and say, okay, this is the framework, or this is the the I mean, it's not written in stone, I mean to say. So one has to really look at it for themselves to know, okay, when is enough. And I think the answer is a little fluid in that space.
Okay. Interesting perspective. I just wanted to see that sometimes, just playing the devil's advocate there, and asking the other side of how much can be overboard of that. I mean, coming back to your pet peeve of somatic leadership, right? Asking you about, if you could share a little bit to our audience what you mean by that. And
Right, right. No, that's a very interesting question, and I'll tell you again. So because I got myself certified as a movement therapy practitioner at a time when I was working at a big four management consulting firm. I was working with KPMG at that point in time, and largely being in a highly demanding job, which was also highly stressful at that time. And mostly, if you look at the kind of work schedule that consultants have, it is highly demanding, and many a times it is stressful at the same time. And I realized the disassociation that I had personally with my body, with my emotions, and therefore that was in many ways showing up in the way I was being productive or unproductive at my workplace. And I think that was exactly the time when I kind of got curious and interested in looking at this dance movement therapy course, which was starting out in India for the first time. And I was like, wow, this is something interesting. And it was just purely by curiosity's sake that I kind of chanced upon this program, and I decided to do the course. And when I did the course, I think lo and behold, it almost opened up a different world for me, because before that I was in a desk job which required me to operate with my highly cognitive functions all the time, which was in the mind space. It did not require much of me to get into the heart space, or get into the emotion space, or even to look at what is it my body sensing, feeling right now. So that there was this whole disassociation of the mind body emotion space. And I think this course got me back into looking at it and understanding it for myself first. And when I really understood it for myself and was able to see the transformational shift that happened to me as a person at an individual level, that is when I got really excited and curious about exploring it a lot more further. And thereafter, many years of many iterations of trying out various different models and seeing, okay, what can I do now differently, what can I birth with this knowledge and marry my knowledge and expertise of being in the corporate for several years, of understanding the workplace culture and the landscape, the employee employer landscape, and now also understanding how somatics work, and understanding the world of psychology and coaching, and how can I marry all of this understanding, and is there a connection. And that took me quite some time to sort of be able to build my own model of now being operating as a somatic leadership coach, where largely we are looking at the interconnection and the interconnectedness of the human experience from the sphere of the mind, the body, and the emotions. It's an absolutely holistic approach. And it kind of, it's again a very embodied learning, because the trainings and the coachings that I do, it's all about embodied learning. It's a completely experiential learning, where we use a VAK framework, which is visual, auditory, kinesthetic. So by using this model, we are really empowering the individuals, the teams, to be able to really bring in themselves fully as authentic human beings, and really being able to operate from a sense of understanding what kinesthetic empathy means, and really working with somatic intelligence. Somatic intelligence is the wisdom of the body. So when we really tap into all of this, and if you're really looking at it from a workplace situation, how that helps in developing deeper, meaningful relationships at work and beyond, because at the core of everything is the human connection. And the human connection, again, the framework that I use is the BIO model. That is, at the core of human connection is belongingness, intention, and ownership. So if we really try and look at it like, okay, how can we bring all of this alive? So my programs are curated to really bring in this element alive into teams, into individuals, and into the organizational culture.
Nice, nice. I think you captured many interesting points here on the somatic, and especially striking for me was the movement part,
Hmm.
which we so kind of ignore in some ways, and the
Yeah.
body's own learning mechanisms.
Hmm.
A good example, because for me, the main, you can say, my USP or the message is on will, which I
Hmm.
talk about from an
Hmm.
action, not just in physical action, which is commonly understood, but also from the ability to express oneself. You need
Yeah.
to act, you need to express, to think and plan, you need to apply your will, and in the same three-dimensional space. And the common example that I share is, we don't have to learn everything intellectually.
Hmm. Hmm.
And sometimes example that I share is like a swimming, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Even if a person doesn't know the theory of swimming, doesn't even know how to spell swimming, if he gets a good coach, he can probably be a national champion in swimming.
And I'll give you another example, since you brought up this example of swimming. The other interesting bit, and this is an example I use so often in my coaching, is that even if you watch 200 or 2000 videos on YouTube on swimming and never go and jump into the pool, you
Yeah,
will not learn swimming. So just
absolutely.
by merely watching and really thinking from a cognitive space and trying to rationalize about it is not going to give you the experience, because you have not really gone with the bodily experience, which is why it is important to really get into the water and learn it. It's like learning on the job sort of a thing, where you have to get into the water and then learn it. So very beautiful example of really using in the element of, again, bringing your somatic intelligence and bringing your cognitive, also at the same time bringing in your cognitive abilities at the same time, because you need both. It's not an either or sort of an answer.
Yeah, yeah. I think it applies to the second, the emotional part of music also. I mean, this was a very movement, but in music, if somebody is learning a guitar and they
Hmm.
don't even know the chords, too many things, they can
Yes.
still play beautiful
Yes.
music. And of
Yes.
course, if they know, the next level opens up as well. So superb on that. And going ahead, we spoke about like how somatic is in a way helping individuals more
Hmm.
live a balanced kind of a life, and to create balanced organizations as such, right?
Sure.
What is your perspective on mental health? I mean, this is a given. It's like a no-brainer question, but still, what are you observing when you interact with people in the organizations?
So, the again, I would just kind of go back to contextualizing this a little bit in the backdrop of the pandemic. And I
Hmm.
think if we look at, how the world sort of changed overnight, the world of work and world in general sort of changed pretty much overnight with the pandemic in the backdrop. And doctor, I think, if I'm not mm, saying the name incorrectly, it is Dr. Murthy from the US, who was a famous surgeon in the US, had actually named the global pandemic as the loneliness epidemic. So
Hmm.
what happened because of this isolation of
Yeah.
people, staying in their own isolated places, the social isolation and the social anxiety kind of got accelerated to a very large degree. And even after the pandemic sort of ended, people were still struggling with that. And therefore I think the conversations around mental health awareness, around mental fitness, kind of started becoming center stage.
Hmm.
And while it was almost a taboo and a never spoken conversation behind the carpets for many cultures, including India and pretty much Southeastern Asia, this became very much commonplace and center stage and mainstream conversations. But like overnight, organizations started enrolling and onboarding mental health professionals, psychiatrists, psychologists, counselors, because they understood that employees are struggling and people are struggling. But here is what I would, and there's enough global data which shows that, Gallup has done this study, Deloitte has done this study, PwC has done this study, where largely if you look at any of these reports, more than 60% of employees have reported stress and burnout, in the last year that they have experienced. And these studies go on, they run these studies across several years. So every year on year you see that the numbers are hardly, I mean, there's hardly any shift or change. What has happened is that while perhaps the number of people who are struggling might have not shifted largely, but we can see there's been a huge um, difference in terms of the approach that corporates and organizations have taken today. While in the beginning it was more of a reactive approach to mental health, and so because, okay, now we can see that people are struggling, so we will have a particular, mental health awareness. So that was almost like a reactive approach to, okay, let's do one session on mental health awareness and make everybody aware that this is important, so please take care of yourself. And if you want to call in sick for work, mental health days, that's also fine. So many companies started using that, that was the starting point of how the organizationals brought back the mental health awareness into their workplaces. Then we moved on to the next phase of change in the mental health awareness, was when many organizations started approaching more from a proactive approach. So a proactive approach is, don't wait till things go wrong, but really, take more of a proactive approach. So therefore they also engaged with largely EAP programs, which is your employee assistance programs, and having many of these ERG groups where you would get assistance if something were to go wrong. You can call an anonymous number and get assistance. Right now, what the other level of organizations are looking at is an integrated or a holistic approach. So it's not just one session once in a month or once in a quarter, but looking at it more from a cultural point of view, from a strategic intent point of view. And many organizations have actually taken it as a strategic intent. So it becomes a part of your CEO's agenda as well. So it's not just a tick in the box or a good to have thing that perhaps the HR function has to do or take care of, but it has taken that sort of a center stage. And many organizations actually do have a chief well-being officer, like you have a chief information officer, a chief executive officer, you have a chief well-being officer, a chief digital well-being officer. So these were new job titles and new positions that were kind of came up. Then you have a chief happiness officer, chief fun officer. So primarily people who are with the agenda of making the workplace come alive, of making people feel much more happier at their work and therefore productive. And so largely we have seen these new things. I mean, I wouldn't say new things, but largely I would say these were new job titles and job roles that have kind of sprung in the wake of the global pandemic, and which also goes on to tell us the amount of significance and importance that organizations are giving to this particular agenda today. So today it's no longer a shame or a taboo, but it is very much a open agenda that everybody can go and talk about, and start normalizing it basically.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's where the phase is now. People have begun to normalize, not add a taboo to it. Still, of course, we have a long way to go, but I think we're doing much better than where we were. And I hope the viewers are having a good time. I mean, learning all these amazing nuggets of wisdom and all the insights that I'm getting from Maya here. And I have many more questions for her. We still have some time to go. And Maya is also, just to share a little bit for viewers who may have joined in now, is a LinkedIn top voice, a distinguished award winning global keynote speaker, coach, and corporate trainer. She specializes in somatic leadership and career transition as a coach. And she's also one of the top 5 women entrepreneurs for her commitment, awardees for her commitment to mental health advocacy. And we have been having some amazing session for the last 40 minutes or so. And I hope if you have missed it, then don't forget to watch the recording. It's been an amazing session filled with wisdom all through. And thank you, Maya. Continuing ahead with more things, more questions on mental health. But before that, I want to ask you and rather congratulate you on your launching your brand Move with Maya. And
Yes, you can
if
see
you
that.
could share a little bit about your brand, your business, what you offer, so people could approach you and connect with you as well.
Thank you so much. Yes, like I said, I have started operating as an independent coach and consultant for almost about a year and a half now, and that is when I started operating without a website, without a so-called brand name per se, but it's all about just going out there and doing the work. The other things can always happen, and therefore this is what I also largely share with people who are wanting to sort of start their own entrepreneurial venture. Don't wait for everything to be perfect, just get started, other things will happen on the way. So I kind of just launched my brand, and my website launch happened just about a month and a half back, and the brand is called Move with Maya. Again, because movement being the key component of the work that I do. Again, movement, not just the movement in terms of the physical movement, but movement in terms of the movement of the spirit, movement of the body, movement of the emotions, and also movement in terms of moving to a different job or moving for growth and transformation. So move, the word move itself is an acronym, MOVE. And this is the framework that I use, move to move. Again, I love acronyms. By now you probably have understood
Yes.
that I love acronyms. So move to move is move to, the first M is move to meet. Move to meet your fears, move to meet your challenges, your emotions, your feelings. The next one is O in the word move. The next one is O, so move to observe. O is for observe. Move to observe your emotions, your feelings, your colleagues, your fears, your work environment. The next one being V. V is for visualize. Move to visualize. And the last one is E. E being express. So move to express, move to meet, move to observe, move to visualize, move to express. So that is how, move to move as a framework and as a philosophy was being born. And the brand is Move with Maya, my name being Maya. So that
Super.
is what it is. And largely the three focus areas that we are working on is around leadership training and coaching. We are working around a lot of diversity, inclusion, and belonging workshops and programs where we are working with the unconscious biases. How can you advocate for yourself at your workplace? How do you promote yourself at work? And then we are also working around workplace well-being and corporate wellness, and like you said, in the mental health space. So largely these are the three service offerings that we have, and all of these are bespoke programs. All of these are experiential in nature, highly engaging, highly interactive. And today, so far, we have been able to transform almost around 80,000 lives across 30 plus countries that we have worked with. And we have worked with clients from different parts of the globe. And we have some of the very big names in the technology and big four space that we have been fortunate enough to work in a very very small framework of time. And I think the work really speaks for itself, and we have all these glorious testimonials from different parts of the world. We got almost 50 plus testimonials from different parts of the world. And anybody that is watching this right now, or probably watching this later in a recording, I would highly recommend that you go and check out our website. And I'm sure you will understand the work that we do, and probably you would want to work with us as well.
Superb. I think I will be sharing the link later, Move with
Please do
Maya,
so.
and you can also Google it and get there as well. And I wish many, many congratulations and best wishes for this new journey. In fact, a journey which has already been there, but probably with the branding and
Yes, yes.
movement there. One of the things that you said about move and movement
Hmm.
uh, saw the connect that we both have in some ways.
Hmm.
Of course, my organization is called Skills Beyond Education, and the tagline for that is change thought into movement.
Hmm.
You know, movement into, don't be in the thought process
Hmm.
itself, change it
Hmm.
into movement,
Hmm.
and create that movement of
Hmm.
energy, movement of
Yes,
action.
yes, yes.
So
So, movement is a metaphor for life. That's
yeah.
how I look at it. Movement is a metaphor for life. When there is no movement, we are stagnating, we are dying.
Mm,
So, if you actually look at an ECG graph, the moment you see a straight line when there is no movement, what does the doctor say? That
yeah,
the patient is no longer alive. So this is what it is. This is
mm,
stagnation. This is death.
yeah,
But when there is a movement, so this is the movement. When there is a movement, there is life.
yeah,
So therefore, movement is a metaphor for life, and
yeah,
movement is also a metaphor for transformation and change. And if you look at this as a sinusoidal curve, again going back to the ECG graph, this is all about transformation. This is all about change. This is all about growth. So that's how largely we look at movement.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, our all internal organs are completely in movement, whether we realize it or not.
Yes,
All the cells
yes,
doing their job, moving somewhere,
yes.
doing something. And rightly said, in fact, there was a research which said that when if people are just put to bed and just left on their bed, or tied up to their bed and given everything there, and in 7 days probably they could even die or suffer something very serious, because
Mm-hmm.
without movement the body starts to atrophy, it starts to decline and decay very very fast. And we saw that in COVID, even
Yeah.
though
Yes.
movement was there, but it was restricted within the houses,
Yeah.
and people would get frustrated. Mental health became a big challenge as such. And movement, like you work in somatic,
Mm.
in a way bringing
Mm.
movement,
Mm.
and I work through the will programs, which is all
Mm.
about movement. And I think people working in the space have realized that movement is so much needed and healthy for developing well-rounded human beings,
Mm-hmm.
and to reduce stress. So I
So
just
true.
wanted to
So
share
true.
that thought, which because you shared something and it connected with
And
something.
if I just could add something here, Captain, is again, how, like you very beautifully said, how the movement of the body, is important. And if we don't do that, if we don't have the movement in the body, how it could probably lead to an atrophy.
Yeah,
Again, when there is a movement in the body, there is a movement in the mind space, in the emotion space, and that is the interconnection of the mind, body, and the emotion. That's exactly what somatically coaching is all about.
Yeah.
Because we are talking about, okay, if we were to move the body in a certain way,
Mm.
how does it change the way we think, the way we feel, and therefore our actions change.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Good.
it's all interconnected. And
Mm.
again, there's another acronym. I'm tempted to give you that acronym. So
Please.
I use this acronym called TEAR, TEAR.
Mm.
Thoughts turn into emotion,
Mm.
emotions turn into action, and action become reality.
Mm.
When they say thoughts become things, what does it mean? Thoughts becomes things from this acronym of TEAR. And
Mm.
these are all ways for me to kind of understand these concepts and be able to use these concepts,
Yeah.
to where I go back and sort of summarize and create these frameworks for myself, and also bring it to the coaching space, is wherein we are looking at, okay, how does these thoughts actually become emotions? Then
Mm.
the emotions drive your actions, the actions thereafter become your reality. Now
Yeah.
if we were to go back to one step back of, okay, where does this thought come from, or is there something that I can do to change this particular thought? Maybe you have to go into the bodily space of changing the movement. So if sitting like this in a space makes me feel fearful and crunched and smaller, and like very, very much like limited and congested, maybe just expanding and moving around will empower me to feel more confident.
Yeah.
And that movement will therefore shift something in my mind space, in my emotion space, and therefore my thought space.
Mm.
So this is how the interconnection connectedness works.
Really very nicely captured. And I think uh, it kind of syncs with whatever you've been saying so far about how movement is so healthy and required, and superb. And I also like to share that, how for me I use movement through playing, through
Hmm.
playing
Hmm.
games. Initially we would do a lot of programs for children and now for adults, and we
Hmm.
did it in a corporate space.
Hmm.
And we invited people to join us to play.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
people were a
Yes.
little skeptical. They had not played for years. They said, last I played was in a childhood, right?
Yes.
And our games are completely not sports like,
Hmm.
right? It's not a sport, we say. And
Hmm.
one of our mantras is, you don't need any talent or skill to play our
Yes.
games.
Yes. So, again, the way they say it, and this is something I use very often, is that we don't become, we are never too old to play. We become old when we don't play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right, so if you don't play, that is when you become old, but if you actually play, you always bring in the childlike self.
I
And
like.
very interestingly, I'm not sure if you have read my latest post on LinkedIn. I actually just posted about this last weekend, where I had done a sort of social experiment here in Bangalore, where I called a bunch of people who are all strangers, nobody knew anybody, and all that we did was engage in play. And
Mm,
within those 6 hours of play, people were able to shed their inhibitions, come
mm,
in from their, space of now childlike curiosity and
yeah,
innocence of, okay, how can we win this game, or how can we, have fun in the moment.
yeah,
6 hours, 13 folks, no mobile phones. Nobody really felt the need to go and check their messages and do other things, because this has become a phone based lifestyle. We are living in a world where it's all about a phone based lifestyle. But
mm,
imagine, these 13 people, including myself, walked away with new relationships, new friendships.
yeah,
And I mean, I say, strangers are friends you haven't met before.
yeah,
And that's exactly what happened when we really forget, or when we really, I would say, tap into the somatic intelligence, when we really bring our mind, body, and the emotions into the play. Really magical transformation can happen. And
yeah.
that's exactly the space I think we both are operating in. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is also a bunch of all youngsters, and
Mm.
in a way working in the corporates, and we just initiated a play. It was, I think, less than an hour, and every time I meet them, they were all strangers to me. And every time I run into them, they're like now hi and friends and all that stuff. And we have created communities like this in different parts of the country in some ways. where people come and play together, and
Mm.
complete strangers have become such great friends,
Yeah.
almost like how we would have childhood friends. We
Yes.
would just play with each other and build a heart's
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think all of us. I think one of the things that I would advise the viewers, anybody, is go out and play. Make use of your weekend if you can't play in the weekdays. Play with your family, with neighbors, and just go out and create some moment, I think.
Mm.
So before we come to the close, we are in the last segment, and
Mhm.
I hope the viewers are enjoying, getting a lot of breakthroughs, nuggets for yourself. We still have a small duration left before we wind up. And with me, I have Maya, who's a renowned global keynote speaker, award-winning mentor, and she's also the LinkedIn top voice. And we've been having an amazing session here. And I hope you watch the recording or the live. If you're there, thank you so much for taking time out. Maya, for the last segment, before we wrap up, few more questions
Mhm.
is what advice would you give the people to recognize their own mental health status?
Mm. Very interesting. So recognize your own mental health status. I think one of the ways, one of the very interesting, self assessment that one could do is, are you sort of feeling disengaged and disinterested in life in general? So, is there something that is kind of sapping away your energy, and not just for one activity, not just for one day, not just for one particular situation, but you are probably losing out, you know, general interest in life? Like nothing appeals to you, no person, no job, no food, or whatever it is. You're just basically disinterested and disengaged in life. And probably you may be experiencing something like a social anxiety, which means that you want to stay by yourself, you want to be isolated, you do not want to engage with other people, you do not want to interact with other people. And if you have to interact, maybe because your job requires so, or maybe because you're living with other people in the same apartment, in the same room, in the same space, then you start feeling a lot more anxious. These are the points which these are some of the, self assessment, self awareness pointers that one could use to sort of understand that if there is a general disassociation and a general disinterest in life, um, there are chances that you are experiencing something that is invisible to the naked eye. And one of the ways that we talk about mental health and how one needs to be extremely aware of it is the fact that when you have a cut on your physical body, you can see it. If there is a cut over here and it's paining and there's blood, you know that this needs to be treated, so you will go to a doctor or you will get a first aid. But when there is something that is happening inside, which is visible to the naked eye, chances are it will go unidentified. And chances are you will probably not identify it at the first level. So by the time you become aware, it probably have gone to a whole new level of now this becoming an emergency situation. So like I say, do not wait for it to turn into a volcano. Do not wait for it to become a volcano to seek help. It is never too early to seek help. And it definitely hurts you. It definitely doesn't hurt you to seek help. The bravest decision that you can make is to ask for help. There is no bravery award that anybody is going to hand out to you if you wait till something goes horribly wrong and not ask for help. So, my humble request to anybody that is struggling or has any iota of struggle or feel this little sensation of disassociation, disengagement, disinterest in life, please talk to somebody that you can trust. And when I say talk to somebody you can trust, most likely you should reach out to a counselor or a therapist. There is no bravery award that will be given to you, and I'm repeating this because we all have one life, and we really want to live a happier, healthier life with everything that life has to offer. So please go out, seek help, and get assistance at the earliest. Don't wait for it to become a volcano.
Super. What would you advise one thing in case they are able to recognize that they are stressed out and they're kind of cutting off from people,
Hmm.
not being themselves? What can they do apart from probably visiting a therapist and doing that? Maybe there'll be a week's time, 10 days, whenever is the
Two things I would suggest. Yeah,
yeah,
two things. So journaling, so one is definitely reach out and seek for help. That's definitely one. The second is journaling. So journaling is a brilliant practice. And if I can probably, turn the camera, I can probably show you my
yeah,
years of journal.
please
So
do.
maybe I don't know if you can see my background or not.
Yeah.
uh, you can probably see the, my bookshelf to
Okay.
some degree.
Okay.
And it actually has journals from the last 8 years.
Hmm.
Journaling gives you a brilliant way of tapping into your untapped emotions, to your subconscious. And there are various. So, I am a certified movement therapy practitioner. I also use a lot of art therapy in my work. And there, again, art therapy is one of the ways which helps you to sort of channelize and various different forms of art. But I would not suggest that for somebody who is not trained and doesn't know how to work with it, but maybe reach out to somebody who's a professional if you have the access to it. And if you don't, the easiest way that you can do is to channelize your energy through pen and paper, write down the emotions, see what is coming up, and then move with it. Like, really move with it, meaning move through the emotions. So if there is anger, there is fear, there is hate, there is jealousy, there is despite, whatever it is. So movement therapy is a beautiful space where we actually work with these emotions. And no emotion is bad. We do not label any emotion as a good, bad, or ugly. Everything is allowed. We need to have an emotional vocabulary. So, one of the interesting things which you will observe when you ask people how are you doing, most often than not the answer is a one word:
Hmm.
fine, okay, thank you, something like that. Good, fine, okay, well. These are the words that generally people use. And I have a problem with that when people give me a one word answer, because chances are they are not doing great. So I would probably go back and say, hey, tell me more about what's great about what's happening in your life. What projects are you working on? What people are you meeting? How does your daily life look like? And when you really probe them a little deeper, that's when things come up, and that's when they really start sharing their actual life is not that great. In a world of Instagram filters, when everything has to be picture perfect and everything is superbly brilliant and everybody's dancing by the beach and having a lot of gala time, real life is not that. That is real life, reel, real life. But real life is not that, right? So we really need to embrace life with all its emotions and have an emotional vocabulary which goes beyond just the good, bad, and the ugly. And if anybody follows Susan David's work on emotional agility, there is a emotional funnel that she has actually shared. It's very famous. I would request that if anybody wants to really educate themselves, go and learn emotional vocabulary, educate yourself, and really work with all the emotions. Nothing is good or bad. Do not label any emotion as good or bad. Everything is acceptable as long as we learn how to move with those emotions and not sit with it, berate it, and make ourselves feel horrible and disempower ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we can go on about this. I think we have just barely scratched the surface. We haven't even touched digital gadgets and media. We haven't touched authenticity and how it affects mental health, right?
Hmm.
And there's so much more to go, but we hope the viewers had a wonderful time, just as much as I did talking to Maya here and getting this amazing insights from her life and the lessons that she shares with some of her best clients. She has shared some of her, acronyms. I think each of them were like a breakthrough wisdom, amazing nuggets. And I'd like to thank all the viewers who've taken time out to listen, or if you're watching the recording, thank you so much for your support and love and for your constant push that inspires me as well and my team to keep doing such shows. Please do like, leave a comment, share it forward with some friend who may benefit from this. And I will be also leaving links about Move with Maya and any other links, including my own TEDx talk and websites. Please do take a look if you can, and my book, Three Culprits: Laziness, Fear, and Doubt. And most of all, thank you, Maya, for taking time out, being here with me and talking and sharing all these things. It has been a great session. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the invite. I really, it was a pleasure and a delight having this chat with you. And I hope for everyone that's listening or watching, this was helpful for you. Please feel free to reach out if there is something that you would want to work with. And have a great rest of the day or evening.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful